Morning, everyone. Welcome to Breakfast Bytes. We're super excited to be here with you this morning. We have a special guest here today. Scott here has his own podcast. He's going to be telling us a little bit more about that. And we're just excited to dive into what his breakfast life looks like, as well as some of his favorite Thanksgiving foods. Scott, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, man, I appreciate the invite. This is great.
Awesome.
So, Scott, tell me something. What is your favorite way to break your fast, or what did you have for breakfast today?
Okay, two things. I've got a concoction that I make. It's fried potatoes. They're frozen. You put them in the skillet, and then you sprinkle over frozen chopped spinach. Get that all mixed around. Pour some garlic powder over it. Maybe a little, definitely a little cayenne pepper, and then some slap your mama seasoning on there. Crack 2 eggs over it. Stir that all around real good. And if I get too much cayenne, it drives us out of the kitchen. And it's like a tear gas or something.
Right.
But then take that out the skillet, put a little olive oil over it, plate it up, a little olive oil, a lot of ketchup over the top, some blueberries, and coffee, and there you go. That's healthy, that's good, and it's very filling. This morning, what I had for breakfast was Chick-fil-A, the number 5, biscuit, sausage, and whatever with the little tater tot things, and orange juice and coffee. So
there you go.
That's the go-to breakfast if I go to Chick-fil-A.
That's awesome.
Well, now I'm kind of hungry. I don't know about you, Hugh, but some fried potatoes is one of my favorite things too, actually.
Super easy to make.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
No, that's awesome.
You get them frozen, those little squares.
Yeah, already cubed up, ready to go.
Already cubed up, ready to go, man.
Man, it is such a hassle to try to do that with fresh potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
It takes so much time. So
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. When you can go frozen whole foods, like they just cut it up for you. That's might as well use it.
Hit the easy button, man. Hit the easy button.
I've done that with air fryer once or twice.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have to worry about it. I just
haven't tried any of that yet.
Yeah, they get crispy. Now, I will tell you that if you do fresh potatoes in an air fryer and let them go for too long, they turn into these little balloons of potato. Yeah, it's weird. They're rubbery. Not at all pleasant. So
no, it doesn't sound like it.
Scott's method here. More consistent.
Don't turn up the if you get your stovetop too hot, and you before you put your potatoes in and they're frozen, you put a little olive oil in there to grease up the bottom of the skillet.
Right.
And that's not something you want to do with no shirt on, because once you put those potatoes on, that'll sting. So
okay, good to know. So this is a shirt on breakfast.
This is a shirt on, or put your night shirt on, and or keep your night shirt on, and yeah, whatever.
Well, all we got to do is wear the Scott Townsend Show branded
apron
there.
Hey, perfect.
Nothing else needed, just that.
That's right. They say don't fry bacon naked. There's a reason for that.
There is. That's some great words of wisdom.
Very, very practical.
Yes, for sure. And you know what? Before we get too far, Scott, why don't you tell us a little bit about your show, and take us through that?
So about a year and a half ago, I was really interested. I love podcasts. I've been listening to podcasts for years now. I think the first podcast I really got into was the Restaurant Guys out of New Jersey, and just could listen to that all day. And I always thought it'd be fun to have a podcast or an interview show of some sort. Fast forward 7, 8, 9 years. And when I was at where I worked, I was in marketing. We were talking about doing a podcast for work. And everybody was too busy, and it was a good idea, but just no one really had time to do it. And actually I did do 2 episodes, and that was pretty good. So then the COVID hit, and everybody had to start working from home.
Right.
Oil prices went down to 0, and I found myself, along with many others all over America, laid off due to 0 oil prices and COVID. So I got all this time at home, and I thought, this is a really great time to maybe, instead of sitting around waiting for someone to call.
Right.
So I just started diving into it. I dove head first. Like I do with anything that I do, and just started putting the pieces together. What I'm going to call it? I couldn't think of a name, so I just called it the Scott Townsend Show, as narcissistic as that sounds, as self-serving as that might sound. I had a lady that she had done a caricature of me, and I asked her, can you take that same caricature, just put a microphone in there, and she said yes, she could, and there was my logo. And so I just started studying how to create a podcast, how to interview, how to get the podcast onto different platforms.
Right.
And then I started asking people to be on the show, and I was amazed at how many people said yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I would read some books. I would call the author or their agent and say, "Hey, I have a very small podcast, but would you guys like to be on an interview?" And man, I got some great big name interviews out of that.
Wow.
Which I was like, I can't believe they said yes to me. I did one. The lady that flew the Southwest Airlines plane. She wrote a book called Nerves of Steel. They're probably making a movie of it, she said. But she flew the Southwest Airlines plane that blew the left engine, and one of the passengers got sucked out about halfway out the window. I don't know if you remember that, a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wrote this book about her experience and the events leading up to that. And so I called them up and said, "Would you like to talk about your book?" And they said, "Yeah." So I was
Wow.
blown away. And then some other, now don't get me wrong, I'll interview anybody, and I have interviewed anybody. Your cousins, aunts, uncles, friends,
Right.
Acquaintances. But really, when you first start out on podcasting, you need to make your chops. I am not a professional interviewer, so I don't know you think you know something about interviewing because we've all watched all the shows, but when it comes down to actually doing the interview, you got to be listening to the guest. You got to be coming up with good questions. You got to do your research beforehand, and then you got to have to be engaging. And so there's a lot to practice. And so for the first year, I just practiced every week. And at one point I did like 30 shows in 30 days just to see if I could do it.
Wow.
And I just fell in love with it. And I've had like the founder of Folds of Honor, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney. Mm-hmm. He just finished a golf course with Jack Nicklaus, and he's author, a PGA pro. Had Ken Rusk of Blue Collar Cash, that book. Several other books, and singer-songwriters. I did a series on 57. My 57th birthday was not too long. It was last year, and so I thought to myself, what would I tell what 57 pieces of advice would I give myself? And so started doing a series on 57. Each episode would be one of those pieces of advice,
Right.
So a year later, I reached 100 episodes. So it was like 1 year, almost to the day, I reached 100 episodes. And, that most podcasts don't last past the 7th episode. So I thought, if I can just get past number 7, I'll be doing great. And I got past 7, got to 100.
Wow.
And then someone said, a friend of mine said, you should, we were the last graduating class of College High in 1982. before it turned to Bartlesville High. And a friend of mine said, hey, you should interview the last graduating class, different people from that class of 1982. So I said, okay. So I had a logo created. I knew how to get a podcast started. So I used Buzzsprout to push out all the episodes. And I started calling up old friends of mine who I graduated with and said, hey, would you, our 40th anniversary is coming up next year, 40th reunion. And so I said, hey, do you want to be on this show? It's called The Last of the Call High Wildcats 1982. And surprisingly, people start, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. I'm just so surprised how many people say yes.
That's so cool.
And, the one thing about inviting guests is you can't say no for them. You just have to ask. And if they say no, okay, just move on to the next one, And I've had people tell me no or not return the phone call. But in this case, the College High, it caught on, and I'm getting tremendous feedback from the graduates of 1982. Most of them are saying, we're so glad someone's brought us all back together after all these years, because when you go to a reunion, you can't go to everyone and say, hey, John, what have you been doing the last 39 years? Hey, Hugh, what have you been doing?
Right.
And you just, there wouldn't be enough time. So these interviews kind of bring everybody up to speed as to what's going on in the last 39 years. And in the podcast form, you've got long form, we can talk about things. And so that's been a tremendous amount of fun. It's really cool when you do something and people really, they like it and they enjoy it and they tell you.
Yeah.
And so it's a very niche podcast.
Right.
We had 296 graduates from 1982, but the word's starting to get out. I got a email from the public relations for Bartlesville Public Schools the other day saying, hey, we came across your podcast. Do you mind if we share it with the other Bartlesville Public Schools and whatever, And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Right ahead.
Go right ahead. So yeah, it's. I've never heard of anybody doing that kind of a podcast before. So it's been really interesting. And I've done a lot of talking. Sorry.
No, that's great. It's really interesting to hear kind of the origins for you and how kind of born out of the adversity of no longer having employment, of the world shutting down over a pandemic, that's something so unique and so powerful for a community could come from that is really inspiring, Scott. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, James Altucher. I don't know if you listen to James Altucher, and if you don't, I recommend everybody listen to it. It's fantastic. But anyway, he wrote a book called Choose Yourself. And, like I said, you gotta choose yourself. You can't sit around and wait for someone to say, hey, would you start a podcast for us? Just do it. Just do it. I mean, you want to write a book, just start writing. If you want to do a podcast, just start doing it. And, the other thing is a lot of people think, well, it won't be any good starting out. Well, of course it won't be any good starting out.
Exactly.
You have to be okay embracing the suck, and you have to be okay with sucking, because that's what you've got to go through to get to the other side.
Yep.
And so sucking keeps people from trying to start because they want to be perfect right out of the gate.
Exactly.
And you can't. You gotta just like a kid learning how to walk, you just gotta take small steps and stumble and just keep doing it. And who cares what anybody else thinks? See, like, for example, the first, this is the first microphone I started with. It's a Yeti, not too bad. Then I graduated to this blue Yeti. Oh, we're doing audio, right? So anyway, it's a small Yeti, a larger Yeti, and now I'm using a Samsung. And so I've just graduated, slowly increasing the equipment and just, spending a lot of time doing it. So the only way you're going to learn to do podcasting or anything else for that matter is spending time doing it.
Yep.
Editing, trying different things out, screwing up. Like I would produce one episode and then forget that at the very end I had this piece of weird music that I'd forgot to edit out,
Oh, no.
Stuff like that, it's going to happen. I've done interviews where I forget to turn the record button on and halfway through the interviews, crap.
That's brutal.
I see the recording button light is lit, so that's good.
Yeah. We're part of the way there.
Go ahead, Hugh.
Oh no, yeah, just that. I really appreciate your comments there, because that's kind of what Breakfast Bites was born out of as well. Was just man, we just keep talking about this thing, but we never just do it. And so we were talking and just like, you know what? Let's just get together before work tomorrow. Let's just record an episode. Let's get out there. It's probably going to be terrible, but the only way to learn is by doing. You can only read so much and have so much of an understanding. And anyway, just being able to build up that experience has been super helpful. We've already learned so much. It's incredible.
Oh yeah.
And so just it's validating to hear that that's been the case for you as well. It's really, really cool to hear.
And you can't go off how many people download, how many YouTube visitors subscribers you have, or how many downloads you have. You're really, at first, you're just doing the thing. For the first year, you really can't even look at downloads and subscribers. You're just doing it. And then after you get comfortable and you kind of got your groove, you found your niche, then you can kind of start, looking at how can we increase our subscriptions or downloads and stuff like that. But first off, you're just taking off the training wheels and learning how to ride the bike,
Piece by piece.
Piece by piece, bird by bird.
Yeah.
I guess there was a book. Yeah. There was a book called Bird by Bird. I can't remember who wrote that, but it's a creative book. Somebody out there listening, the thousands of people who are listening right now, surely somebody will know who the author of Bird by Bird is. So yeah, right into Breakfast Bites and let us know who wrote Bird by Bird.
Yeah, that'd be great. Or the many thousands of people you're referencing. I'm sure
there you go.
We'll get something.
There you go.
It's funny though, when you mentioned Bird by Bird, my thoughts immediately went to Thanksgiving. I love turkey. Turkey's something that just, man, and especially with the cold weather coming down in Oklahoma right now, thoughts start turning to the holiday season, all that stuff. And Scott, we were wondering, on the Thanksgiving table, is there any one food that without that food, it's not Thanksgiving for you?
Ham. The dressing, mashed potatoes and gravy with garlic mashed potatoes with gravy and green bean casserole. I guess you said one food, so I guess
so give you your
ham.
That's okay. I mean, we talked about
plate
ham yesterday.
Yeah, so on my plate, I guess you'll find ham. You'll find a big old heaping spoonful of garlic potatoes, mashed potatoes with gravy, green bean casserole, dressing, and a deviled eggs.
Oh yeah, those have got to be there.
I think that that's a big plate right there.
We've been talking about the favorite foods for the last couple episodes, and it's been really interesting that every person we ask, whether it's not necessarily on the podcast, but even our own friends, is completely different. I'm like, it needs to be stuffing, and he's mashed potatoes. Some friends of ours, green bean casserole. And funnily enough, one thing that I think we both agreed on was canned cranberry sauce. I don't know if that's common.
No, I know that's always on the table, and every year for 58 years now, I've passed it by.
Well, this year you should give it a try.
Maybe in honor of Breakfast Bites, I will try the cranberries. My mom would be very happy if I did that.
There you go. That's amazing, Scott. Thank you for that sacrifice on our behalf.
Yeah.
Can't promise it'll be life-changing, but
for John and Hugh, this is for John and Hugh, Mom.
Perfect.
Give me a picture.
Man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Scott. I think we're about out of time for the podcast here. It's been just a pleasure to learn more about you, to learn about your favorite foods, and we hope to talk to you again real soon.
So yeah, so everybody out there, how do you get a hold of Scott? You can listen to the Scott Townsend Show on all the podcast platforms. The Scott Townsend Show YouTube channel. If you want to get in touch with me, Scott at scotttownsend.info. And I would love to have people check it out. And
We'll link
good luck on your podcast.
show notes too for you.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Hugh, you got anything else today?
I think that about does it. Thank you so much, Scott, for your time, and everyone check out his show. It's really great, really high quality. We're super glad that Scott was able to be on with us today, and we hope that you all have a fantastic week this week.
See you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Scott. Bye.
Breakfast Bites.